Hello, everybody. This is Megan.
And this is Alana.
Ooh, and welcome to Tea Time Crimes.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back. I want to hear all about your Ireland trip and how many people.
Here we are.
How many people did you speak to with your amazing accent?
I was very good. It only came out once before, maybe was it before the wedding? No. But it came out once and we were able to nip it there.
Were there 13 of something and you just couldn't help yourself?
No, I love to say gorgeous. It's
Nice.
gorgeous out. You look gorgeous.
Did Mary Kate like that compliment? I assume it was about her.
She did, but then she said, "Get it out now."
I still wanted you to ask. Like, I wanted you to get close enough to.
No, the groom's brother was like, "I want it to come out." But then it was just so busy of a night that I didn't really let it fly.
Man,
And it was just such a whirlwind trip cutting it short. So
that was a mistake. I wanted to hear what they said, their
know.
opinion.
I know.
Oh, well,
It's a lost opportunity.
I'm sure there'll be other times.
I hope.
Had any of them heard your accent on the podcast?
I don't think anybody besides Mary Kate and Alan.
That's a blessing. All right. Well, how was the trip? The ceremony?
It was wonderful.
Married someone. 2 people.
I did. Not even Chris. No, it went really well. It was beautiful. It was a lovely, lovely wedding, and I was glad to be there. And I'm sad to be home.
Yeah. That's always the way.
It is.
Sorry. The platform we use updated, and it is, I mean, you might
It's
as
blowing
well
your mind.
put me in a.
We're live streaming right now.
There's now a live stream button. Everything's moved. You might as well just put me in a OR and be like, see what you can do, because I am just overwhelmed. I was just making sure all the buttons were in place, and they are. So do you have any fun Ireland stories, or are you going to hop right into your tea?
But no, it was a great time. Stayed up till 2 a.m.
Good gracious.
doing all the things. So it was great. It was grand.
Yeah. Highly recommend. How many thumbs up was it?
I mean, all of the thrustings. Whoa. All of the thumbs and toes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it was incredible.
All right. Well,
Highly
congratulations, Mary Kate.
Congrats. We love you.
We'll see you at Christmas.
We'll see you at Christmas.
See you at Christmas. All right. What were you going to say? Did you have something?
I have a tea. So do you.
I know. Yeah. I brought a tea in a Tea Time Crime mug for Tea Time Crimes.
That mug. I love that mug. What tea is it?
It's available on our shop. What tea is it? It is a
Tea Time Crimes.
Immune and stress tea, elderberry something, blueberry. Maybe?
Oh.
Yeah, but I don't want to.
Elderberry, very hot right now.
I want to stay in my lane. Just you go.
Okay. Well, if anybody knows anything about Irish tea, I'll give you a guess.
You brought one back?
Of what's coming. Yes, folks, it's Barry's tea. Gold. And I love it. It says our most loved blend. Expertly blended in Ireland from 1901.
Oh boy.
It has to be Barry's Gold Blend. Our gold blend is exceptional. I can't do the full Irish accent though.
Oh, really?
In its quality and bright
Thought you were really carrying it there.
bright golden color every time.
You can't even say golden, for God's sakes.
It's a Rainforest Alliance tea, if you were wondering.
It wasn't.
But anyways, it's a classic Irish breakfast tea. And I mean, it was just so wonderful to be there. You go to hotels, you go to restaurants, cafes, they respect tea. There's a kettle, there's proper tea bags, not just the shit tea.
Rude.
There's milk. It's amazing, and I wish the US was like it. All right, let's go in.
All right. So is Barry's a well-known brand that everybody in Ireland knows and loves?
Yeah. Yes. I can share a funny Instagram reel I found the other day on Barry's as well. They just know how to make good tea, okay? Oh, the depth. It's a perfect cup of tea. There's that depth. There's the maltiness that comes from specifically an Irish breakfast blend. It sits in your mouth. It stays there. It's there to hang out without being, burdensome. It really gives you some courage for the rest of the day to get through it.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost as if like it was a Guinness as a tea. Not that it tastes like it, but it's like that kind of bold and strengthening body to it. So I enjoy it. It's a nice stout tea, if you will. We're going to give it a perfect thumbs up.
Whoa, perfect. All right. Well, yeah, we'll take it.
This is my favorite kind of tea.
I want to try some. Save me one.
Get you some Berry's Gold.
All right, you ready?
Are you ready for spaghetti? I don't think you're ready. I'm ready. Hit me with it. Now it's all coming out.
And I didn't mean to do this, but our ladies from Ireland.
Oh,
but it takes place in the U.S. But anyway.
Oh,
okay. So we've done the tea time. Now we're doing the crimes. If you weren't following the format, Mary Farmer and her husband James lived in a small, rundown shack. It was described in Brownville, New York. Today, Brownville has about 1,200 people.
Wow.
It's very small. It's about 70 miles north of Syracuse on the Black River.
Oh, geez. Quite north.
Yeah. The town was so small that often the farmers would have to travel to Watertown. I think that's how it said, or Waterton. I don't know. The place with the water. For any business, which was about 5 miles away. So it's pretty isolated. It's 1907.
Oh, so we're not just driving over.
We're super isolated. And we can't just, jump in our car and head over to the Waterville place, Watertown.
Perfect for murder.
And think of the winters up there in upstate New York.
Yeah.
It's going to be some cozy nights in the shack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going to be stuck there.
Yeah, you better hope that James is a good storyteller or else you love to read, because otherwise
true.
You're so bored. James worked at a mill during the day and then drank at night. That was his pastime. While Mary worked at home caring for their infant son. Mary had moved in 1900 from Ireland. I hate to say it.
Ireland.
Working in first Birmingham and then Buffalo. And then she met James in 1904 and they got married.
Okay.
Mary was, of course, devout Catholic because, she's Irish. And she was friends with her Irish neighbors, the Brennans, Sarah and Patrick, or Patsy, as he was called.
Cute.
I know, they are cute. The couple had been married in 1881 and they lived in the area for the last 35 years. Patsy was a paper maker at C.R. Remington Mill.
Oh.
And like Mary, I believe Sarah stayed home, but she is in her 50s. So she's in a different stage of life than Mary.
Yeah.
So to set the story, it's 1907. Mary's home with what sounds like an alcoholic husband, or at least a husband who likes to drink, a very young child. And her only social opportunities are church, trips into town, and visiting Sarah.
Oh, gosh, the isolation.
Yeah, she doesn't have book club on Wednesdays, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one fall day, Mary decides that life is no longer enough for her. She simply cannot spend another year in that tiny shack through the drudgery of everyday life. Now, knowing where the Brennans kept the deed to their house, Mary broke in and took the paper from Sarah's purse.
Slow it down, Missy.
Yeah, she went from 0 to 60 real quick.
Wow.
Although that wasn't a saying back then. How fast do horses go? She went from 0 to 12 real quick.
I bet they go to 60.
Horses? With a person on them?
I think they can go really fast.
Well, yeah, but you're not going to be, she's not in a race.
You think maybe she did a casual trot? Probably at 11 miles per hour.
Yeah. She's just kind of like doing her thing. Horses can go between 45 and 50 miles per hour.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, but again, you're not doing that to the market. Okay. So whatever. She went from 0 to 22 and
whoa now.
Okay. Anyway. So Mary kept the deed for a minute in her hot little hands. I don't know why. She simply, maybe wanted to pretend the house was hers. I don't know. Maybe wanted a dream.
Just hold it.
Yeah.
I dreamed a dream. I don't know the rest of the song.
That was plenty, I think. And then and then she goes to the law office of Frances Burns. And this is a world without picture IDs and biometric scans. So a few signatures is all it took to transfer the Brennan property to Mary Farmer.
No.
Mary Farmer simply said, I'm Sarah Brennan. Here's the deed to my house, and I'd like to transfer it.
What?
Francis Byrne, attorney at law. He's not sponsoring.
Look him up.
Not sponsoring this episode. You know what I'm saying? That seems silly because it is. And the scheme would fall to pieces if anyone was to look under the hood. They would simply say, well, that's not Sarah. And so this is not, this is void. This doesn't hold up. But Mary, for some reason, did this and then just kept it again like this for a while. And then in January of 1908, Mary Farmer heads back into town. She goes to a different attorney because Frances has already seen her.
Yeah.
This time she's posing as herself because the deed's in her name, and she now transfers it to her son, Peter, who's an actual baby.
Okay.
Right? He's months old. When Mary returns home, she shares this good news with her husband. Great news. An uncle of mine has passed away. I inherited some money, and I used it to buy the Brennan home. And they're going to stay in the house but pay us weekly rent. It's an amazing deal.
There's no way they're going to be okay with this.
Well, this is just what she tells James, allegedly. We can pick this apart later.
Okay.
If you haven't gathered, James is maybe not the most astute gentleman. Because he's like, this is great. And then he tells all his buddies at the mill and at the bars.
Oh, no.
And eventually people in town start asking Sarah Brennan about it. Right? Because she's been there for 35 years.
Right.
They have a very nice little farmhouse. They have the land.
Yeah.
The place where the farmers live, it's below the Brennans, and it's confusing if they were the landlords, if they owned that and they were renting it, or if they just were neighbors. I heard both.
Okay.
But it was, they had a very nice setup, the Brennans did.
Yeah.
So by April, after hearing this story more than once, Sarah decides she better go ask Mary about it, right? They're friends. Let's just get to the bottom of this.
Okay.
How did this start? Does she know anything about it? I don't know Sarah's frame of mind. I don't know if she's ticked and she's walking down thinking, okay, this Mary woman has lied for the last time.
She's galloping, not trotting.
Yeah, I don't know if if she's got the horse and she's doing 60 miles an hour down the driveway, or if she's just thinking, this is so silly, I'm going to go ask Mary about it and we'll have a good laugh over the...
And a cup of good tea.
And a cup of... Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, that same day, which is April 23rd, Patsy gets home from work. The doors are locked, which is odd because Sarah's usually home. The spare key is missing. And Sarah's not around. He knew that she possibly was going into town to get some dental work done, so he's not overly concerned, but he does want to know where the spare key is because typically he'd be able to get in the house. He had seen her that morning, and she'd made his breakfast, and they'd ate breakfast together, and then she'd packed a lunch for him and sent him on his way to work. She was maybe going to the dentist, happy mood, nothing out of the ordinary.
Right.
And then the always helpful neighbors, the farmers, see him trying to get in the house and they come up. All the papers just say farmer said. So I don't know if they mean Mary or James, but one of them breaks the news to Patsy that Sarah's not home. And FYI, before she left, did she forget to mention that we now own your home and all of the things in it? And that she actually sold it back in October. So Patsy's super confused. He obviously had no idea that this had happened and would love to ask Sarah about it because that seems like something that would have come up at the dinner table. Patsy is kind of dumbfounded and he just sits down on the porch.
Right.
Take this all in.
Like, what the hell just happened?
Did this happen? Why would she do this? Where is she? I need to talk to her. When Sarah doesn't return home that night and when he doesn't know what to do, he breaks into the house and just sleeps in the house because where else are you going to go?
Oh, this is sad.
And then he gets up the next day, still hoping that she's maybe at the dentist and maybe decided to stay in town. He goes to work. Patsy does this for, I think, 2 nights before his friend George Richardson pulls him aside and says, dude, go look for Sarah. no dentist takes 48 hours.
Right.
Dig into this a little bit. I think he was in shock. It finally clicks. He says, you're right. So instead of work, he goes home again, and he finds the farmers there moving all of their belongings in with their friends.
Dude, this is insane.
Yeah. From the shack that they live in, up the hill to the Brennan's house, just moving all of their stuff in. Mary's overseeing, supervising this entire process. Patsy's understandably a little upset. And also homeless by the looks of it, because they serve him with an eviction notice. And Mary says, listen, if you just are cool, you can stay here.
Rude.
In his mind,
you, Mary.
This is his house. He's lived here for years.
Exactly.
And up until 36 to 48 hours ago,
right.
It was still his house. He's having a hard time wrapping his brain around this. He goes into town hoping to find Sarah. No one has any idea where she is. This time, he goes to the sheriff and he reports her missing and says, BTW, you might want to look into the farmers because I can't find her and they're moving all their crap into my house and told me I need to get out.
Good. Good for him for saying that.
Well,
bitches.
Yeah. The law does kind of a quick stop by and Mary says, oh, no, Sarah sold me the house. It's mine. Got the paperwork to prove it. And she went to get some dental work done. She'll be back. Is she getting veneers? Because this is what
also,
dental work?
In
1907. 1908 now. 1908.
I only imagine rich people, first of all, getting dental work in this time. Like, this is wild.
Dental work is they extract a tooth that's rotten and then you get dentures. She's not having a 4-day root canal.
No.
Anyway, on Monday, April 27th, the sheriff show up at the house and they say, listen, Sarah hasn't showed up. There's no sign of her at a dentist, so we're going to search the home. It's not long before, hidden in a room, deputies discover 2 trunks.
Fucking trunks!
I know, sorry.
Are you kidding me? Enough with the trunks.
All the time. The smaller trunk, both farmers say it's theirs. James and Mary are like, yep, that one's mine. Then there's a larger trunk, a big, black, large trunk wrapped in some sort of string repeatedly and locked.
Here we go.
And Mary says, it's not mine. And James says, yeah, it is. It's yours. It's not mine, right? They're both saying, yeah, James would be great on Jeopardy, I feel. They both say that it's not theirs. What's interesting is when they were moving, Mary was supervising and she was real particular where that large trunk went because she didn't want anything to break. Yet she's saying that it's not hers.
Right. That doesn't make sense, girly whirly.
And the sheriff says, okay, well, we're going to open that trunk. So give me the key. I don't have the key. Me either. Neither one of them have the key.
But they moved it from the shack to the house.
Yeah, they lost it. And maybe the horse was going too fast. But the sheriff, this is stupid to him. He's like, okay, I will just now break the lock. So he breaks the lock. And opening the trunk, the sheriff is hit with the foul odor of Sarah Brennan's decaying body. Forced into the fetal position, it was clear Sarah had died from severe blunt force trauma to the back of her head. Go ahead and earmuff. Sarah's skull had been crushed and her ear severed on the left side. She also had numerous blows to the face that were delivered after she had fallen to the floor. Mary and James are arrested on the spot. Neither one are described as overly upset. I'm not sure if this is true, but I did find in one source that a search continued of the home, and a search found several newspaper clippings of murder cases, like a collection.
Like a Pinterest vision board?
Yeah. I mean, I feel judgy saying that since I have my own true crime podcast, but it is unusual in that time to cut it out of the paper and save it in a little scrapbook. But I mean, I don't know if it's in a scrapbook. In my head, it is. So their 8-month-old is also taken to jail. Because Mary says, I'll tell you what happened if you bring the baby and some water. So she might not be the best negotiator I've ever heard, but she is then allowed to take care of her child, at least for now. Mary goes through an absolute evolution of confessions.
Oh boy, here we go.
First, she admits she did it. Sarah came to confront her about the rumors, and Mary struck her on the back of the head when she went to look out the window. The Buffalo Times prints this statement, quote, "I killed her. She came to our house on Thursday. I knew she was going away. I hit her on the head." But Mary said she also had the trunk ready to conceal the body. So I don't know if it was premeditated or she just had the trunk. It was just in the room and she was pulled it over, or if she saw Sarah coming down the hill at 60 miles an hour and she thought this is it, or if she knew Sarah would confront her at some point and she thought it through. Her second confession, "Just kidding, James did it." That's not a direct quote. I made that up. The Yonkers Statesman quotes Mary as saying this, "I may as well tell the truth. Jim did it. I found him leaning over her body in the sitting room. He had an axe in his hand, and he said to me with an oath, 'That's the end of her.'" Police are sus about this second confession just because.
Yeah.
It seems that the first one was truthful. And also, James seems to maybe have been elsewhere at the time.
At the pub?
I think he was at his sister's.
Oh.
And Sarah was murdered around 10 in the morning on Thursday, April 23rd.
Oh, morning tea time.
So Mary would have been the one that was home.
Yeah.
Number 3, there's a third confession that comes later. "It was an act of mercy, and Sarah was sick and asked me to end her suffering." Yeah.
Pretty sure that's not how it would go.
Yeah. Grasping at straws.
Oh.
And her legal team will throw in a fourth self-defense one. But both James and Mary are arraigned on May 1st and ask for separate trials, which is probably the first smart thing James has done.
Yeah.
They're both charged with first-degree murder, and they both plead not guilty.
Girl.
Mary Farmer's trial started June 11th, 1908. The prosecution's first witness is Patsy, who testified that the deed was a fake, and he'd been served an eviction notice from the Farmers, and he knows that Sarah would not sell their property, and that wasn't Sarah's signature.
Right. Like, how's he doing, you know? He must be devastated, Patsy.
He must be so devastated. This has been his...
They seem like a nice couple.
Since 1881, they've been married. Right? He goes by Patsy. That's not a hard-ass man. That's a nice, hardworking,
nice man.
Making paper at the mill, coming home to Sarah man, in my opinion. He's not very vocal about it. I mean, he goes to the trial, obviously, but he doesn't speak up. Mary's defense team is eyeing the insanity defense, but they're also floating that self-defense theory I alluded to. They claim that Sarah did transfer the deed to the Farmers because there was an impending slander suit coming down on the Brennans, and she didn't want to lose the house. This was thrown out of court.
Huh.
It was thrown out of court because of hearsay, and they couldn't prove it. So the defense doubled down on the insanity plea. Medical experts and just regular folks who knew Mary take the stand to say Mary was irrational when she lived in Buffalo. Her previous physician claimed that several of Mary's relatives had died from insanity. That seems extreme.
That's not how that works.
Yeah, that's dying from indigestion kind of vibes. You know what I mean? That's not what happened.
Died from a broken heart.
Yeah, I mean, I realize there's certainly an emotional element to people surviving, but I don't think her relatives were just falling like flies because anyway. Witnesses testified to her outrageous lies as proof she was not of sound mind. Listen to her lies. They're frankly pretty boring. Her brother died while working on the New York Central Railroad and she had benefited from his insurance policy and bought a very nice house in town. But she's saying this while she's a domestic servant. She also had a sister at St. Vincent's Convent. That's it. That just means she's a liar.
Yeah.
Who likes to imagine living in a nice house and wants you to think that that's true. That doesn't mean she's insane.
I mean, clearly she wants to live in a nice house.
Yeah,
she is murdered over it.
The prosecution says, well, okay, maybe you have those people, but we have the same group of folks who say the opposite, that Mary was incredibly rational and hardworking. Because she was employed at the Roth family, she went by the name Mary O'Brien then. They said Mary was perfectly rational and a decent employee. She had also been employed as a domestic servant at the Binghamton City Hospital. She was also a servant for the Kendall family and the Bull family. She worked under different names, though. Mary Ann Bree was one of them. I think it's interesting that she's changing her name all the time. I think maybe we have a con woman rather than a woman who's suffering from insanity. She had also previously submitted insurance forms that clearly selected no history of insanity in her family. Obviously, that could have been to get around the insurance because
sure,
if you have that extreme situation going on, but that's what the prosecution says.
Okay.
The defense then introduced an injury Mary sustained the day of the murder, trying again with that self-defense plea.
Oh.
Another misprint in the paper like last week called it the ELF defense instead of the self-defense, which I don't know. I tell you, there's always a common theme between my episodes that I don't mean.
Oh, that's funny.
Which sounds just adorable and very Christmassy. Yeah. And I was,
reminds me of that elf SWAT team from Santa Claus.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I thought, wow, maybe Santa was in jail. And
yeah, God, great movie.
Anyway, self-defense is what they meant. For 3 hours, the jury reviewed the case before delivering a verdict of guilty on June 19th.
Good.
Mary was then sentenced to death by electrocution.
Oh.
Some sources say she was hysterical. Others say cool as a cucumber.
What? It's one or the other.
Well, I imagine reporters see her at different times, right?
Oh.
Probably in the courtroom. She maybe
in the courtroom
is in shock, but then back at the prison, maybe it sinks in.
Oh, maybe.
Who knows? Because Mary is one of the few women to be sentenced to electrocution in New York. Do you know who the other one is?
Yes. What's her name? Ellen. Nope.
What's
her name again?
Oh my gosh.
I forget names.
Martha Place.
Yes. We don't like her.
Yeah. Martha Place was the only one whose death sentence had been carried out by the electrocution method. We covered that a few episodes ago. Go check it out.
She was awful.
Because of that, there is no death row cell for Mary because she's kept at a different prison than Martha.
Shit.
Martha was in the city, but Mary is in Auburn prison, which is closer to Syracuse, and it's an all-male prison. But it is the only prison in the area that can carry out the death sentence.
Oh.
But they only have 5 cells on death row, and they're full. To complicate matters, they have 5 cells, 5 people on death row. They don't know where to put Mary. They also are getting their 6th death row inmate, Pacey Hill. He's arriving at the same time. They can put him in another part of the prison because he's with other men, but they don't know where to put Mary.
Yeah.
And FYI, Pacey, just because it came out while I was researching, he was an alcoholic in his 40s who murdered his 18-year-old cousin Chloe in a drunken rage when she started picking on him for drinking too much. When he sobered up, he was devastated at what he'd done, and he was put to death in April of 1909.
Jesus.
2 years later, Chloe's brother Charles, who had never recovered from witnessing the murder, took his own life with a Winchester rifle.
Oh my God.
I know. Winchester. Isn't that crazy? I know. It was all these.
Wow.
Yeah. All these previous themes coming out in this episode. Anyway, they had to build 3 additional cells on death row. Prisoners are the one building it.
How long does that take?
By the way, that's what I thought.
Oh, of course.
I thought, well, this will take years.
Right.
A week. They just need a week. So I don't know how state of the art these cells are.
Maybe it was because it was before like all the bureaucratic shit that there is today.
Yeah, probably. There's probably no inspection. There's also there's probably no electric, right? They just lay down some concrete or bricks and close it up. Ultimately, they had to make temporary arrangements for Mary in a woman's prison until her cell was ready. And this is all just new stuff. This is the logistics of having a woman.
Isn't that wild?
I know. It's so crazy that they haven't encountered it until now.
Right. It's the 1900s. That's a long time of humans existing.
Yeah. Once Mary is back at Auburn, they also had to appoint the first women guards, Mrs. Dunnigan, Mrs. Sequoyer, and Miss Gorman. And they're the first females to hold that position. They only had to watch Mary. That's it.
What? I feel like other females have had male guards.
I don't know. Maybe they did, but they decided not to because they would need attendants to go to the execution as well.
Right. I remember that.
Remember from Martha? Yeah. And I think they decided to do this. So they had to hire these 3 women. All they had to do was sit and watch Mary.
Something about Mary.
Meanwhile, James, his trial, also found guilty, sentenced to death.
Oh, shit. I don't think he did it, though.
Yeah. Mary's initial execution date was set for August 2nd, 1908, but her lawyers, of course, file an appeal, which automatically postpones the date, which is what we always see. By November of that year, both James and Mary are in the same prison, both of them on death row. This is really never happened to have a husband and wife both on death row in this prison for sure. And across the U.S., it's thankfully pretty uncommon.
Right.
With both parents on death row, the fate of Peter Farmer is unknown. The Buffalo Inquirer published the following letter. Quote, I saw in the paper that James and Mary Farmer are to be electrocuted next month for the murder of Sarah Brennan at Brownville, and that they have a 16-month-old boy named Peter, which the state of New York will give to someone who will take it and give it a good home. I have no children and would like to get the baby. I would raise it as my own if the state will send the child to me. Pauline Miller, Dallas, Texas.
What? Why didn't you give it to the sister?
Isn't that weird? A weird vibe. She could be the absolute nicest woman in the world, but I mean, and this we know this is before there are real checks and balances for children. She doesn't end up adopting Peter, but I just thought it was interesting that this is the reaction. Again, could be a very nice gesture and just part of the times. And who's willing to adopt a child that knows their parents are convicted murderers is probably not a lot of people, but it gave me the creeps a little bit. Mary had been allowed to care for Peter initially, right? Remember when she said, bring me the baby in the water. But then I think Peter went to an asylum, orphanage. The Wilkes-Barre Times later writes about it. They're super poetic. Really flowery. They say, a baby, a pretty baby, whose eyes have been opened to the bright world a little less than 2 years, will be orphaned by the lightning of the law.
Wow.
In an asylum, which the state provides, the terrible story of the crime of this baby boy's parents and society's vengeance will be kept from him until the truth creeps into his heart. Kindly disposed attendants at this asylum who have learned to love this child hope that some childless husband and wife will come to claim him, change his name, and forever keep dark his unconscious shame.
Oh, wow.
Yikes. Yeah. Both parents are set to be put to death now, December 13th. But again, appeals delay the execution. Now, Mary had been tried first, and so hers has gotten kind of the farthest. She is waiting to see if she can get an appeal, and then it comes down to only the Governor Hughes at this time, can save her from the death penalty.
Okay.
As we've seen before, the public is torn on the subject of the death penalty, just in general. But also you're executing a woman, you're also executing a mother of a very young child, which Martha did not have children of her own that we knew about. There was that, she had the older son who she said was adopted, back and forth, but she didn't have a little baby. They're also questioning her sanity still. One of the female prison guards, although they don't call them prison guards, they call them matrons, which I find annoying.
I think they still do that.
Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was the right word. Matron is a word that
I know, it's wild.
Makes me uncomfortable.
I kind of love it.
You love it?
Like prison matron. I could just see it's very, I could see, what's the person from Matilda?
Mrs. Trunchbull.
Yeah, I feel like it's that, but in a good way.
Oh, I'm thinking more Chicago. That woman, Mama.
Oh, wow. That's different.
Yeah. Anyway, matron guard, whatever they're supposed to be called. One of them quits. This cracked me up because Mary was too insane for her to handle. And I read that and I thought, ooh, we're going to get a real insight. Somebody who was with Mary, possibly 8 hours a day. We're going to get into what might have been her diagnoses and all that. She said Mary was too quiet and she could no longer, quote, endure the terrible silence.
Really? Talk with the other matrons, homie.
Okay. I mean,
get an audiobook.
Maybe this isn't the job for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not Mary's job to entertain you. She's like, hey, I know you're about to die and never see your child again because you did something terrible, but what do you think about, could you entertain me with a fairy tale? Thanks. There is a priest in town that also is making the same claim in an effort to save Mary's life, argued that she's been acting odd since the trial began. He doesn't give examples of what odd means, though, and there isn't really a benchmark for how somebody should act when they've been convicted of murder.
You're gonna act odd regardless if you're on death row.
Yeah, for sure. The priest's argument is this: she's insane because she killed a woman and stuffed her in a trunk. I mean, he says it was so terrible that it proves her mind is not as the minds of common folk. To execute this woman for a deed which was made possible only because of an affected mind is a terrible thing. And this is really the argument we've seen throughout the years. If someone is a murderer, and I mean murderer like a Ted Bundy or a Jolly Jane, everybody asks the question, are they sane? Because something doesn't seem right. Yeah. And that's why today the question really focuses on, do they know right from wrong? And are they sane enough to stand trial and understand, rather than are their actions appropriate? Which is, but this is, 1908, 1909. The priest is making the same argument and going back and forth.
Interesting.
As you might have guessed, your BFF, Teddy Roosevelt, is under the lens because he's the governor who set the precedent of allowing Martha Place to be executed. Teddy is serving his final days in the White House right now. I don't think this is on his radar, but the argument here is that society has evolved since 1899 and they shouldn't make the same mistake that Roosevelt did. People in town, not Brownville, but other New York towns, collect signatures to prove to the governor that Mary should be saved. They suggest clemency as well, which always surprises me. Through stories in town from previous coworkers, they make the same argument that Mary was unstable, not aware of what she did. And again, the evidence to this is that she made up those grand stories, which again, I say she probably was just a con woman.
Yeah.
Not insane.
This is all because she's a woman, in my opinion.
Yeah. In this version of events, the blame also lies on James Farmer, saying that Mary changed once she met him and married him, almost the reverse argument we see a lot of. He would have been involved in the crime if she hadn't wooed him with her womanly ways. It goes both ways, and in this way, they're blaming James.
His manly ways.
Yes, James' manly ways. He had a nice mustache. Maybe that was it.
Oh, okay.
Research also uncovered that Mary had tried that deed scheme before, and it had simply failed, and that's why her and James moved to Brownville. So I don't know was that really James's idea? I don't know. And you telling me Mary didn't
to be the one coming up
know
with
about
it?
Yeah, he does not seem.
He's looking for a pint, and that's about it.
He doesn't seem like the inventor of the duo,
Yeah.
There's always one person who makes your plans. It doesn't seem to be James. The governor does review the case because he needs to do his due diligence. Ultimately, he acts like Teddy and refuses to intervene.
Okay.
March 29th, 1909, Mary Farmer's final sentence was carried out. The day before Mary was allowed to see James, they're in the same prison. One final time, they're brought to a cell to meet. They spent about an hour together. There are bars separating them, but they're allowed to talk. Some sources say James sobbed as he said goodbye to her. Mary did not cry and said, "Goodbye, Jim. If I don't see you in this world, I will in the next." But when she returned to her cell, she spent her final hours on earth praying for her soul and was pretty emotional.
Wow. Makes
At
sense.
6 a.m. that morning, she was led to the chair, softly praying to herself, holding a cross. 2 of the prison guards, so the 2 that are left, Mrs. Dunnigan and Miss Gorman, escorted Mary to her death.
Why so early?
Yeah, I don't know. They always do it at weird times. If you
it's like, imagine, I don't know the matron's hours, but they're like, fuck, we got to come in 3 hours early for this.
Well, they probably have to stay up all night with her, and she's not going to sleep.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's some weird logistics. I think Martha's was at 11.
Right. I just don't get it. It's weird.
For Mary, because of Martha, they knew to cut a small spot of hair away on her scalp, and they knew they'd have to raise her skirt to the knee because, remember, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
In order to place the electrodes. Over and over, Mary said, "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, have mercy on my soul."
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph?
Yeah, she must have still had an Irish accent, yeah?
I would think so.
I would think so. The first shock administered lasted for a minute. And once the electricity subsided, Mary let out a moan and had some muscle contractions. So doctors required additional shocks to be administered. However, it was believed that Mary had mercifully passed away on the first attempt.
Oh, it's like just nervous system stuff.
Yeah, and it was...
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, electricity is crazy shit. Like, I feel like you could make a dead body move with electricity just because.
Yeah, because it contracts the muscles so much.
Yeah, exactly.
She left the world with one final confession, absolving her husband James and admitting
Peter did it.
She alone killed Sarah Brennan. No, she took full responsibility. Her priest read the statement that had been given and signed by Mary, and it is as follows. I'm going to call him James, and for the paper they call him Jas. Jas. I don't understand it. He's been James this whole time, and they were like, we just couldn't possibly fit the M and the E in, so we're not going to do
Jim
it.
Then
I don't. Maybe this is common knowledge. If you're a James out there and this is normal, tell me. But anyway, so I will alter this quote with James. My husband, James D. Farmer, never had any hand in Sarah Brennan's death, nor ever knew anything about it until the trunk was opened. I never told him anything that happened. I feel he has been terribly wronged. James D. Farmer was not at home the day the affair happened. Neither did James D. Farmer put a hand on Sarah Brennan after her death. Again, I wish to say, strongly as I can, that my husband, James D. Farmer, is entirely innocent of the death of Sarah Brennan, that he knowingly had no part in the plans that led to it, and that he knew nothing whatever about it. Mary H. Farmer, subscribed and sworn to me before the 25th day of March, 1909, and then signed by a notary.
Good.
Well, James sat on death row for another year.
What?
Before he was allowed another trial, unlike Mary, and it was solely because of this confession.
Yeah.
On March 1st, 1910, James Farmer was acquitted of all charges.
Oh, thank God.
During his second trial, interestingly enough, James was also vocal about Prisoner Hill, which I assume was Pacey Hill, the man that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
He said that he had also been innocent because James was saying, I'm innocent, and finally you're getting it. And he was saying Hill was put to death already, and he was also innocent. So you almost put two men to death. He said he had no idea of the crime and just came to when he was arrested and thought he was innocent.
It's a little weaker of a case.
It is believed that James' sister actually took in Peter, who is now 3.
That's what I was like the whole time.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make sense.
Why wouldn't she do it?
I don't know if, I just don't know. I don't know if she couldn't at that time. I don't know if there's some sort of process that was in place because the parents are in jail on death row. But I believe Peter was with the family, at least. I don't know if he was reunited with James or if he lived with her. I hope that's what happened.
Yeah.
But there's no word on if the two of them were reunited or what happened to Peter. But James went back to the shack and back to the mill just as he had before.
How do people return to their normal life after life-altering? I would just move to another state or something like that.
Maybe then you're so worried about it coming out and you just don't want to live with that stress. At least there must be something freeing about just being, well, you know what happened.
Guess.
Here I am. I have no idea. But I mean, what do you think? Do you think they got it right? Did James know about it? Did he not know about it?
No.
Was it just Mary?
James is a simple man. And he just wanted to get his work done and then go have a drink. He let Mary make the decisions. And here we are. He didn't do it.
Yeah, I wonder if he knew. I don't think he did the murder either. I think that was Mary. But I do wonder if he knew something about at least the scheme of the deed. Because I think he was always over there telling Patsy, oh, get out of here. You're out.
Yeah.
Do you think he really believed Mary that she just inherited a ton of money and bought? Maybe.
I think she manipulated. I think there's probably more to that in their relationship. Like she called all the shots, told him what's right and wrong, and he I don't know, felt inferior enough or, thought she was smarter and went with what her plans and her schemes.
I have no idea. It's really hard to get a picture of somebody through the papers.
Then,
James could have been a real jerk and really
true.
And Mary could have been doing this behind his back to try to get out of it. He also could have been just like you said, kind of whatever you say, Mary, whatever you say.
Yeah.
It would take probably a conversation with him to know or to make a guess.
Yeah, exactly.
But we don't have that. So it's hard to say, but that's
my suspicion.
He was acquitted after spending a long time in jail.
Wow.
I think her first confession was probably accurate. And I do think she was, for the most part, telling the truth at the end and at the beginning. But even if she wasn't, I wonder if part of her was just thinking, well, at least my son will have one of us. And that could have been an act of kindness. Even if James was involved, that could have been what she thought was an act of kindness for her son.
Could have, yeah. True.
But I don't know if they were even together after, so that's speculation. But yeah, what are your last words?
Oh man, it was going to be crazy if they both were electrocuted.
I know.
That would have been nuts. Oof. And I don't know, like, she's obviously off because, like, this is not how you get into a bigger house. Like, that's not the path. But was she insane? I don't know. I mean, I think she's different from the normal person, but is that insanity or is that, nature versus nurture type of thing?
I know, it's that same argument the priest was making, really, when we still make today. Yeah. So
it's hard to know.
I think she was sane to stand trial.
Yeah, I do too. It's not like this is a thoughtless scheme. I mean, it's a little, there's, some blurred edges here, but like she thought through the whole thing. She got the deed changed.
Yeah.
Everything. She had a trunk ready. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, even if that detail was exaggerated and she decided to put her in the trunk after, she still tried to hide it. She's trying to hide the trunk. She's trying to close it up, trying to make sure nobody gets to it. But she did say she didn't have any real plan past then. She was just going to keep it there indefinitely. She hadn't really thought that far.
Yeah, that is doesn't know about decomp, apparently.
No.
I mean, but how do you fit a person in a trunk?
You ask that every time.
You have to bend them over and break their ribs.
We don't know how big or little Sarah was.
I just imagine her being forced in half and the bones in the middle.
They said she was in a fetal position, but those trunks are huge. They're those big steamer trunks.
I know, but we're big too.
Well, we don't know. Sarah could have been 5 feet tall.
Oh,
we don't know.
Sarah. Oh, my second thing is I remember this as we were talking in Ireland. The Irish think there's a difference between Sarah with an H or not with an H. And it's Sarah or Sarah. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. What's the difference?
One is which?
I think Sarah is with an H.
Shoot. Well, it was Sarah Brennan then. She had an H.
Sarah and Sarah. And I'm just like, no, they're both the same. It's Sarah.
This is Dawn and Dawn all over, and I don't want to revisit it.
Oh my God. Dawn.
Stop it. Don't.
Well, yeah, exactly like that.
I can't.
Oh, man.
I can't hear the difference between the two. And if you try to correct me every time, I will just exit the conversation.
Oh, God.
Leave me alone. Okay. Who should listen?
All the Sarahs and Sarahs out there. Our Irish listeners and American listeners. New Yorkers.
Prison matrons.
Keep it real. We got you. And let's just throw in a dentist.
Yeah. Please limit your procedures to 90 minutes. Okay? 4.5 days in the torture chamber.
Right? God. Truly.
God bless you, Patsy, that you thought. I wonder if he thought she left him.
I know. That must have been lurking in the back of his head.
That makes more sense.
After so many years.
That makes more sense than what was happening.
Than a room and board at the dentist.
Than her being at the dentist for 14 years and to her just selling the house to the farmers and them showing up and to them murdering her, which is what really happened, and then just stealing their house. That is insane. Insane. I mean, I don't think the insanity plea should have, I'm just using that.
No, yeah.
that term, but
yes.
He probably was thinking, God, she probably left me.
Yeah.
He was probably racking his brain thinking, man, did I not?
What did I do?
Did I say something? Did I do something? I knew,
Baby.
Awful.
That sucks.
Ugh.
Yeah, poor Patsy. I hope he found something to live for. Did they have children?
I don't know. I was trying to find more on Sarah. I wish I could have gotten a better picture of her because in my head, I just really like the fact that she took really good care of her property and her home. She was bold enough to think, who's saying that? And then march her way right down to Mary's.
Yeah.
because nobody's ever going to think that's what's going to happen, and confront Mary. I think I would have liked Sarah Brennan, but I didn't get any more about her, so I don't know. They didn't say anything.
Oh, Mary, I'm sorry.
Mary, you're sorry, or Sarah?
I mean, Sarah, sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, sorry for both of them. That's a rough.
Yeah.
More so for Sarah. All right. Well,
Sarah.
Oh boy, you can find us on all the platforms at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimegrimes@gmail.com.
Please rate, review, like, subscribe, send us recommendations for teas and crimes.
Yes,
and thank you so much for listening.
Everybody, write some reviews. That's all I got.
Your singing is getting better every week.
Ta-ta.
Okay, we're done.